Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McLemore.
All right, good evening, and welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. I am your host, Kimberly McLemore, and welcome to another night of sharing. With us, we have Angela Marshall, also known as Author Stone, into the studio. Angela Marshall is an Augusta, Georgia native entrepreneur and positive words powerhouse that utilizes her personal life experiences of struggle, strength, and success to captivate audiences and readers abroad. Author Stone is a motivational presenter, published best-selling author, columnist, ex-NFL wife, and creative writing consultant. Having struggled through a lavish but sorely lacking lifestyle as a former NFL wife, that chapter in her life proved pivotal to her wise words woman nickname. It also produced the transparency in her inspiring inquiring minds want to know auto-biography, Reality to Rags to Riches, the story and life of an ex-NFL wife. Angela has been featured on the world's most influential platforms, but tonight, let's welcome her to my platform. Good evening, Angela. How are you?
Great evening, Kim. I am amazing. How are you and your viewers and listeners? Hi, hello.
We are doing great. We are live. I'm excited to have you on tonight. We have known each other for more than a year, but we haven't seen each other in a while. So we talked a few minutes ago before we went live, and just excited to have you here. So before we get started, could you just tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself beyond what I have read this evening so far?
Absolutely. Again, thank you for the consideration and opportunity to be on your platform. I am an individual who is just setting out to make a global impact of motivating, celebrating, illuminating, but most importantly, liberating others just through my words, work, and wisdom. I am a published author. I am a motivational, inspirational presenter. I am also a former NFL wife, as you mentioned. And I'm a creative writing content consultant. So I wear many hats. The most fabulous hat that I've worn to date is mother. So I have two amazing children, Arthur and Auburn. Hey, Arthur and Auburn, if y'all are listening. And, a ton of wonderful people that are in my circle. I have been, just like everybody else in life, just to and fro, dealing with different issues, highs and lows. I'm accomplished in certain areas, but in other areas, I'm like a menace to myself. Notice I didn't say to society, but a menace to myself. And, I'm just on a spiral upward climb to just grow and evolve and to just, as I know better, to be better. So that's who Angela Marshall is. Thank you again for having me on your platform.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And you just said so much there that we're going to break some of this down because you have so much to offer. And, listening to just what you said, you're very transparent. And I think that's the thing that I really connected with you even the first time that I met you over a year ago. And so, I'm just excited about you having the opportunity to be just as transparent with my listeners tonight. So tell us just a little bit more about how Angela got started in what she's doing and how all this started to connect with your previous marriage and so forth. So let's kind of start there.
Okay, absolutely. I wrote a book. It's titled Reality to Rags to Riches, the story and life of an ex-NFL wife. Now, the reason why I wrote the book is because for many, many, many years, a lot of people was just kind of assessing what they thought my life was like. And apparently the assessment is that, it was perfect penny. I had no issues. Everything was great. And just from the standpoint of being able to not really talk bad about the NFL experience, because it definitely was not the NFL experience at all. It's not about that. It's not about the money. It's not about my ex-husband, any of that. It was solely just me, because there was a lot of work and a lot of stuff that I had not done for myself and on myself. So I made my own self miserable. Mm-hmm. So I wrote the book. I really planned on just writing the book, putting it out there, kind of setting a few things straight for myself and going away quietly. Well, that didn't happen. A lot of people wanted me to come and they wanted me to speak and share a little bit more about my life. And so that's how I, evolved into a motivational, inspirational presenter, which I'm enjoying immensely, might I add. As far as being an author, I write therapeutically. I write just to, free myself and free my mind. So it's been something that I've always enjoyed doing anyway. So to write the book, as well as, being a featured author in a book called Women Who Lead, it's just been an amazing and an incredible journey. Mm-hmm. Now, with all of that being said, I really took this leap of faith after a conversation with my mom in 2013. So prior to that, again, I was a former NFL wife, and then I went into the workforce for a little bit. But, after I had the conversation with her and realized that I merely was just existing and I was not living, I decided to, as I exhort my mentees, get off the bench and get in the game of life. Mm-hmm. So that's how all this kind of snowballed into, this global movement of the story and life of an ex-NFL wife.
And I like that. I like what you're talking about, the fact that, your story is not just based off of the money and the riches and the fame and the glamour, because most people, when they hear the word NFL, like you said, everybody gets stuck on that one piece and not realizing that you are still a human being. You still have a life of your own. And it's amazing how we always find ourselves as women consistently pushing ourselves backwards in order to allow other people to be forward, but we still don't live the dreams that we want to live. And like you said, you were basically just existing. And it's funny that you said that, those words, because I have a book that talks about living and existing, the pros and cons of that and balancing, because we find ourselves consistently always as individuals and human beings making excuses of why we're not doing this or that, for whatever reason that may be. So what was that conversation like that your mother had said to you in 2013? You said it inspired you, it lifted you up, but what did she really say that really hit you hard to say, you know what, you're right. I'm not living my life. I'm just here.
Well, basically she, began to tell me that she was proud of me, which, my mom and I, we didn't really have a really, really good relationship for most of my life. I mean, it was okay, but it wasn't a great relationship. So to hear her say that she was proud of me, like that gave me like a boost of courage. Mm-hmm. And then it freed me in a lot of ways. But basically, when she said, I know you always wanted to be an author, you want to write and you want to tell your story. I want you to do that. I want you to live your life just as you've helped other people live. I've always been a behind the scenes person with being cheerleaders for this one, for that one, being a hedge fund, so to speak, for others, FUND, funding their funds and whatnot. And I've just, I've been a complete support system to and for a lot of people. Absolutely love it, still do it. But I just decided after that conversation with my mom, which actually was on her deathbed. So I know that sounds a little bleak and it sounds a little grim, and it's not like I'm saying, okay, well, because my mom was dying, it gave me, permission to live. That wasn't it. But I really feel like there was some sort of transference from our conversation, because my mom was always one who lived her life to the absolute fullest. I mean, like whatever she wanted to do, wherever she wanted to go, she did. Mm-hmm. So she lived a very full life. And I lived, an empty life pretty much. So that is a part of the conversation was when she said, I want you to, do everything that, you have ever imagined doing. And I want you to do it like now. I want you to live your life. So it just, it inspired me. It, lit a fire under me to where I said, if this woman who is at any moment, knows that she is about to take her last breath because she was actually battling with a terminally ill cancer. If she can exhort me to do that, yeah, I might want to take heed and do it, because my mom died relatively young. So it was time after that conversation. It was more than time for me to just really, really start living.
Right. And that's, sometimes we sit back and think about, it's kind of sad that we have to have experiences in order for us to try to move forward. And it's not because you don't know you need to move forward. It's just sometimes, like I say, you have to have that extra push. And, I'm sorry to hear that your mother has passed away. And I'm sure that you sit back and think and wondering, like, Mom, are you seeing me now? I know you're proud of me, but are you really seeing what I'm doing, not just by helping others, get to their reality of life, but to, reaching your own and really pushing forward? And how does that reflect and deal with the kids? How do they enjoy that, your kids and the grandkids and all that good stuff? How do they see you?
Well, they are, let me start with my grandchildren first. I went to pick up two of my grandsons on yesterday, and just because he's not really the youngest, he's the middle. His name is Dion. He's very near and dear to my heart. Because he sees me on videos and TV, he thinks I'm like the most famous person ever. So they really get a kick out of it. It's like, hey, you want to meet my Nunu? That's what they affectionately call me, Nunu. Hey, you want to meet my Nunu? She's famous. She's on TV. So to him, in his eyes, I'm like Oprah famous. Okay. So that's how the grandchildren are, that's how they are. That's how they see me through their eyes. And then I even have another grandson who did a project. He's supposed to do I think a Black History Month project on famous people or whatnot. He actually did it on me. So I thought that was pretty great. My children, they've always wanted me to walk in my dream. And now that they know that I am actually positively impacting people, they are just tickled pink with everything, especially when, someone says, hey, I know your mom, or I saw your mom on here, or in an article that was done on your mom or whatnot. So they get it, they understand that I'm not doing any of this for fame. I am absolutely loving the opportunity to be totally, totally truthful in different things that I struggled with, and then being able to transfer that and help people to walk in their strength, just like I'm walking in mine. So it's an amazing feeling to know that from a conversation with my mom, so seed that was already growing in me anyway, but then the conversation with my mom sparked the ability for me to be able to just impact lives. Like, Kim, I get messages from people in Puerto Rico, in the UK, like all over, that are saying, hey, thank you for your story. Like, oh my God, I was, borderline this, or I was depressed, or I kind of, indulged in the same or felt the same way that you did. But listening to your story is giving me the confidence, is giving me the capability to, do some things differently, because I take full ownership and accountability for my inactions, or for my inactivity, for me sidelining myself, me being on the bench, because at any given moment I could have changed my dynamics drastically. There was no bondage, there was no hostage situation. It was just solely me. Like, I had not made up my mind about what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be and what I wanted to leave, the mark that I wanted to leave in this world. So just having that story, reality, which is why I tagged reality to rags to riches. There are a lot of rags to riches stories,
right? But
like you mentioned, all of them are rags to riches, where they talk about, I went from nothing and now I have something, where I'm, just talking about my experience, my reality with both of it, rags to riches. And the true riches for me is, has nothing to do with monetary or materialistic. If it can be replaced, it's not a true riches for me.
Amen to that one. So tell us a little bit about, or share one of your stories that you have maybe in your book, or, one of those struggles that, you have experienced, and then obviously you found your strength and now you're successful at that. And something that relates maybe to one of the people that talk to you from overseas that say, hey, this was me and I can really relate to you. Talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I will share just a little bit as far as about my divorce. I'm not an advocate for divorce. I do not, go around telling people, leave your husband or leave your wife and you will be better off. That just happened to be my story for me and my ex, and we've grown tremendously. We're the best of friends. We have an amazing relationship now. But during the divorce period, I found out a lot of things about me, just how I was suppressing a lot of feelings. I, had muted pretty much my own voice. And in turn, I was making myself miserable as well as my ex. There was no way for him to be able to grow. When you usually when you're in a union or you're with a partner, usually, you kind of feed off of each other, and there's something you offer to that person doing the strength and weakness type, and you help each other, you help mold and you help grow. I was not doing that for him. And I recognize that. And so now it's like I make a conscious effort to, for whoever I give my time to, whoever gives their time to me, their energy to me, to make sure that I'm feeding them, I'm fueling them, and I'm filling them with as much positivity, and energy as I can. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the main things I believe that I've just really, really learned from that walk. And I talk about that a little bit more, obviously, in detail in the book, from being able to see a lot of things clearer from motherhood, how different things that we did in front of our children while we were married, with the arguing, the bickering, just a lot of stuff that we should not have been doing at that particular time. So now I'm able to give people a different perspective and a more positive outlook on how those things should be done, so that, you can live in peace within yourself, just having the inner peace and confidence, just, knowing that you can be a better person, and you can be a better person not only to others, but more so to yourself.
Right.
So that whole piece going through, what we did in 1999, which is when I filed, and, once it became, a document at the courthouse, mm-hmm. I just, I had a lot of baggage and a lot of craziness and a lot of recklessness and just other stuff that I needed to truly, truly deal with. And I'm so happy that I was able to do that in order to tell quite a few stories honestly and truthfully in that book. Because one thing that I do believe is that if you never face yourself, then, you will not be able to succeed the way that you need to, or the way that you can in life, if you don't face yourself, just being really honest and truthful.
Right. And you're absolutely right. And I love that part of your story that you're talking about, because a lot of times you say, people who go through divorce, it's always them against the other, or vice versa, well, he did this or she did that. But the reality is, there's two people in the story, and we all have our issues, when you're going through divorce. But I love how you talk about the fact that you really had to look at you and realize that there was those things you just weren't doing. And, you could admit that. And a lot of people can't admit that, but you can't move forward if you don't really know who you are. And no matter who you connect with afterwards, you will never be able to give them what they deserve if you don't understand who you are. So sharing those stories, those true stories, those reality stories, like you say, is very important, because nobody's perfect in any relationship, whether it's in marriage or outside of marriage or your friendship. You have to really truly be able to zone in on those other people, but you have to know who you are before you can also help other people out as well. So I love that you're giving us a taste of that here on the show, and I hope our listeners are paying attention to what Angela's saying, because everything you're saying is absolutely reality. Divorce is not the easy thing to go through. I've been there. It's ugly. It can be very ugly, but you definitely learn a whole lot about yourself.
Absolutely. Got to turn that mirror on yourself.
Yes.
Because ultimately, I'm the only one. Like, I had to really recognize that I'm the only one that I control. Even my children to this day, I only control them up to a certain age. Mm-hmm. And so now, like, all of their decisions, everything, their choices, is solely on them. So being able to surrender, and that's another thing that I'm learning in my meditation now, being able to surrender control for things that I don't control, or I don't really impact, I don't influence. It's just been amazing for me. It's been a stress relief.
Right. And then you're always going to continue to grow. As we get older, we learn more, about everything that surrounds us, and then more about ourselves, the likes, yes. The things we like, the things we dislike, everything. So it's important that you are referencing it now, so that you can, like I said, continue to move on. And yeah, I know about that control when it comes to, our children. Boy, my son be looking at me like, Mom, really? It's like, because, you want to let go. We always know we have to let go. But then there's always that, well, we've been through this and we've been through that. But at the end of the day, they still have their own lives. And, when we can say we can actually really, truly let it go, then we have definitely learned something about ourselves. And I think they appreciate that a little bit more, because they have to have those experiences. We can't constantly just share our experiences, but they have to experience it all themselves. So yeah, I get it.
Everyone has to bear their own cross, and
Absolutely.
that is true. Everyone, and we will, they will, you will, I will. We have to bear our own crosses. So yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So let's talk just a few minutes about your business. In other words, by Stone.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what you do in that business for people.
In other words, by Stone is a creative writing and content business where I help people either update or create resumes, bios. I also review essays, any documentation that requires grammatical editing, proofreading. I do that. I do slogans. I write speeches. I've written a couple of speeches for, some political figures, as well as others that just, they like, what you want to say, but you can't necessarily put it on paper, and you need somebody that's going to give it a couple of words in there that's going to give it a wow factor. So I do that, as well as writing grants, bids, proposals. I do procedures, standard operating procedures for private and, other companies and firms. So, in other words, by Stone was created or was formed because I am a lover of words. I've always been very good at, putting sentences together that, and it's not like telling lies, but just the way that I word it, it would make you walk on water, so to speak.
Oh, well, I need to come see you, okay?
Man, look here, I'm telling you, my percentage is very good. Just about everyone, I think with the exception of one person, I don't believe that she followed exactly what I asked her to do with her resume, but everyone else, after I did their resumes, they ended up getting either the contract or getting the job. And again, it's not about embellishing at all. It's just people have to understand that in today's society, the way that certain companies and organizations, they're looking for certain keywords or buzzwords. And if you don't know how to, really, I guess, word your resume or word your bio, or even just in everyday being able to speak, stand up, give a speech, so that you can draw the crowd in and you can keep them engaged and keep them, entertained. It all of it makes a difference. So in other words, by Stone is just, we do everything based on words for the person who, again, in other words, can't, come across quite as well as we can get it all for you. So that's my business.
Well, and that's amazing business because, like you said, that depending on what it is you're trying to apply for, or if you have a speech coming up, trying to find those right words that people can, resonate with, it is important because I know there's many times, I think about some of the speaking, be like, okay, I'm struggling here, how can I make sure that I maintain myself without like I'm going over that hump too much, it's a reality, we all have, go through that process. Like I always tell people, I feel more comfortable behind the mic, so sometimes when you're out there in front of the mic, it's a whole different perspective,
Yes.
So that's a great business. So it definitely need to have that, out more often. I have to, share that more because I had no idea that you did a lot of that until I started doing a little bit more research on you.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Kim, each person that has interviewed me, they want something a little different, but most times it's not necessarily about, in other words, by Stone. I get an opportunity to talk about that, but the main piece, they really want me to just talk about my life in general because that is the piece that, and not that, in other words, by Stone doesn't impact or, help lives because it does, but from the standpoint of me really being able to talk about anxiety, depression, different things that I suffered through, low self-esteem, things that mental health, things that people are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. I think, that's been more of the focal point for my journey.
Right. But like you said, you write to, it helps you relieve those things that you've gone through. And I know that I'm that type of writer too. When I'm going through something strenuous and, I've been, abused the whole 9 yards. So it's like all those things when I remember I was writing that healed me. And so a lot of times when people are trying to dive into your personal life, you're remembering those little tidbits and those things that just you constantly had to go through over and over and over. And so even though it's more interesting to them, on the other side, it's still that constant healing process when you have to reopen that door,
Yes.
That can of worms, as people may say, in order for them to understand who you really are. And so that's why I'm loving hearing your story. And I always kind of try to bring it to a full circle, because I think it's important that people understand that we are more than just what you see. And,
Yes.
and your story is absolutely that. But I know that the first thing people see in that title is really just the ex-NFL wife. They kind of forget about the rest of it until you actually sit there and talk about who you really are and what you've been through, and that it's not about, how much money you have. And like I said, and all the material items in life, as those things do come and go, and that can happen to anyone. So, your story is, to me, very, very transparent, and I love it. And I'm definitely going to have to get the book and read more about it. And I have to have you on the Author's Corner so we can really dive into the book some more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yes, you hit on one of the main reasons why I don't mind being out front. Initially, I was a little apprehensive, because I was like, oh my God, people are going to talk. They're going to pick me apart. There's going to be critics. They're going to be, a lot of different things at me. But once I got over that from my very first speaking engagement, and I saw just how freeing it was for myself, and then how others were being freed, it was like a no-brainer for me to just continue to walk in my truth. It's funny because society has so many what we have termed normal cliches, but it's actually abnormal. They say truth hurts. Truth does not hurt. The truth sets you free. What hurts you is all them lies and the masks and the layers, right, that you have prior to that. And then, of course, you get to the truth, and then you're like, oh, well, I'm crying and I'm hurt. Well, but that wasn't the truth that hurt you. The truth will actually set you free. And that's what it's been doing for me. I mean, I would not trade this journey for the world. Sometimes I do think, oh, why me, God? Why? But, again, when I get those emails or the text messages or phone calls from people, and they are just, talking about how I've made a difference in their life, it really does give me purpose, and it gives me that position that I know I was created and I was formed for, and, to tell my story.
Right. Well, and at the end of the day, as we sit back and think about our journeys, period, we realize that we try to walk our journey, but the Lord says, no, you're going to walk my journey, the journey I've set for you. And, we always come off of that train, and then once we get back on that track and do it the right way, that's when the truth does truly come out, because we really start to see who we are, what we should be, and, live in our purpose versus the purpose that we thought that was what we, the right thing to do. Right. So.
Absolutely. Because I never in a gazillion years would have thought that my life mattered to the degree that it does. And that sounds really crazy because, that there's a reason why you're here, but I just did not know that it would be to this magnitude, like for all of the wrong choices, wrong decisions, all of the right choices, right decisions that I've made. And then you bring it together and you share that with people, and how it puts pieces of their puzzles together. And you're like, wow, I'm helping, I'm impacting. That's another one of my slogans and mottos that I live by, is that giving back is a priority. It's not optional. And so I walk very, very boldly and bravely in my truth, because I know that it's gonna set people free.
Wow, you are doing a phenomenal job. So keep up the great work. But before we leave tonight, I would love for you to tell everybody how they can get your book and how they can reach out to you for any other thing that they may need with.
Absolutely. Well, you can always Google Angela Marshall, Augusta, Georgia, or my website is www.inotherwordsbystone.com. I am also on every social media outlet just known to man, from LinkedIn, IG, Facebook, all of those. So any one of those avenues, you will be able to get to me. Even if, and I say this, very truthfully and proudly, even if you don't, want one of the books that I offer, it's not a problem. Or if you don't need to reserve me for a speaking, engagement or an event, that's not a problem either. I would love to, be in your circle or be in your life concerning that. But even if you go to my website and then to the social media and be able to absorb the motivational and inspirational quotes and sayings that I put out, sometimes daily, definitely weekly, I post certain things out. It would help and change your life tremendously. So check me out, and thank you again for having me on the show. I appreciate it, and definitely looking forward to everything that you and I can do as far as aligning our visions and mission to just impact as many people as possible.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure to have you on tonight, and I thank you because I know you're busy, and I just appreciate you, spending, the time with us and our listeners. But before you go, do you have any last words for the listeners this evening?
Ooh, okay. I will say to your listeners, hey, get off the bench, get in the game, and, whatever you want to be, if you are willing to pursue it, you can possess it no matter what it is. So, I'm going to piggyback off some of that old adage of you're never too old, it's never too late. And that's absolutely the truth. So, if you are willing to pursue it, pursue happiness, peace, love, joy, success, or whatever, you can absolutely do that 100%.
All right. You guys have heard it from Miss Angela Marshall, better known as Author Stone. Make sure that you go and review her website at www.inotherwordsbystone.com. She has a lot of great things on that website. And if you need to reach out to her, like she said, she's on all social media platforms, no excuses. But as for me, we're every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. on iHeartRadio. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, you name it. We are on it. So no excuses for not listening to the show. If you need to listen to the repeat, you can listen to it as soon as we are done. And if you'd like to be a guest in 2020, I'm already filling up for next year. So make sure you reach out to me at Kimberly at WSBILLC.com, and also send, or either send me a Facebook. You can inbox me there, Facebook, and all I need is a short bio. I need a picture and a business logo if you want to be on this show. I'm telling you, we're growing. You definitely want to be on the show. We've got some great people coming up as the next couple of weeks as well as for the following year. But until next time, you all have a great evening and good night.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.